Getting all set up. Good morning. It's getting all set up to continue from yesterday. So. There we go. Alright. So let's see. I think I'm going to stick this stuff over here and then work our way down. There we go. Just getting things in the right spot. There you go. Oof. Sorry, Bosch. Dog's under my feet. This sounds a little clunky from this artist here, but good morning. Let's see. I guess I'm not pointed at that too well. There you go. Wandered off the camera. Sorry about that. Oh, good morning over there on I think YouTube. Yeah, you gotta get up. Actually, I'm a little slow. I mean to start this earlier in the morning, but a little slow in the morning with all the stuff going on. So, it's yeah. Let's see. There's one. I don't get too distracted, I should be able to finish this one pretty easily. This tutorial setup here. And you gotta decide what you're doing, right? Let's see. Yeah, looking forward to getting into some more, I guess, creative time in soon. So I always make sure this happens. I try to make sure this happens most every single day. You know, there's some exceptions, but but it's been kind of a busy school year, so I have a lot of things tried to take care of for my students, and so alright, there's that one. And then get into these smaller ones over here. No, I'm well, they may have been originally. I think these are from photographs, but I've one of the things I thought I would try doing for the next little bit, you know, so I've been doing these study projects in the morning. So, for example, I've got behind me to my right, I've got a whole bunch of art books. Half of them are up here. These are kind of my more illustration, concept art based books up here. Painting stuff is downstairs, but the but I've been working from those. So like I've got Loomis and Jack Ham and a whole bunch of other kind of artists. I've been through their books over the last couple of years. I was recently, you know, last fall I was looking at through a Tara Whitlatch book and kind of copying what was in there. And then lately I've been looking, you know, I've been seeing all these kind of interesting tutorials, short tutorials people post on social media. And I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of not just look at them, but actually use them. So, so these are some hands drawn by an artist named, what's the name on here? Tursun Soylu, that name right there. And anyway, the Etherington brothers have been posting up images of other people's tutorials alongside their own pretty much every day. Um, and so I thought I would start using some of those. So that's what I did, like, for a bunch of hands for like 3 or 4 days. And then this is another hand set that they posted recently from this artist here. I thought, I'm always looking for kind of new and interesting things that I can bring to my students. Things I know about or didn't know about or forgot about, or things that are different ways of looking at things. So I'm always kind of on the lookout for those kind of that kind of information to help my students. So that's what that's what I'm looking at here today. So I use this kind of as a warm-up process in the morning, so it kind of gets me making something. So even if I don't get the chance to work on my own work for the day, depending on what's going on, like I've got a bunch of stuff I'm writing. I want to do 3D animation, but I don't really know about drawings. What should I do about it? I don't know. What do you want to do? That's always the question, right? Let's see. Yeah, it depends on what you want to do. So, like in terms of 3D animation, that's a whole giant subject all by itself, right? There's all kinds of stuff there. If you're trying to learn drawing, it depends on the kind of drawing you want to learn. Are you trying to draw, people? Are you trying to draw stories? Are you trying to draw scenes? Are you trying to draw creatures or animals or that sort of thing? Body type, like specific body types, or like ecto, endo, or mesomorphs. So different body types that people typically have. So thin people, kind of average people, and like thick muscle people. Body structure, okay. Well, see, that helps to know. So if you're trying to deal with drawing the figure in terms of structure, I always recommend the classic stuff first. So there's the Loomis books on figure drawing. I definitely highly recommend those. And those are nice because you can get them in print now, finally. They started publishing them again about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And because before you used to not be able to find them anywhere. They just, had been out of print for like 50, 60 years. And but now you can get them relatively inexpensively as nice hardcover books. Good morning. Yeah, so that's where I would start is with Loomis. I need to put together my own figure drawing course. I've taught figure drawing the most over the years. I have some perspective drawing things on my teaching site, which is the name of the channel you're seeing over there on YouTube or Twitch and other places. If you go to myartprofessor.com, that's my kind of teaching site. But it's kind of how to deal with composition and perspective. I have some stuff for figure drawing, but I just haven't gotten around to putting that. That's kind of a big thing I've got planned out for the next 8 months, is putting that all together for myself. Yeah, well, again, like one of the best things I recommend people do generally is copy work. And again, I'm looking at somebody else's art here. Some of these hands aren't as good, like in terms of the actual drawing. So, like this one right here, I'm looking at the artist drawing here. It's a little stubby. I mean, I see what they're going for, but that one's not great. This one's really, really nice. I think I like these smaller ones. I think are coming off pretty well. Then the artist here is also kind of doing these more stylized ones. I think that's kind of interesting to see. But copy work is like a really great way of improving. Just like looking at things that you like and drawing it, and trying to understand, what their motivation was, or their intent, or their process. Any of that's really good to kind of pay attention to. And I think doing copy stuff is one of the fastest ways to improve, because you get into the aesthetics and the mind and the style and the working method of another artist, and it can make a really, really big difference for you. Again, yeah, I always recommend Loomis, right? So Loomis, Andrew Loomis, figure drawing for all it's worth. That one's really, really good. Nice big book too. Beautiful drawings, which is always nice too. So, depending on where you're at in your age, I would definitely recommend going to like figure drawing sessions. Open figure drawings where you can draw from the live model. Um, but one of the things I think people don't think about a lot when they're trying to learn art skills is kind of that very often the chase of skill itself is a problem for artists, that they focus too much on it. I've done that, where I think if I just get good at this thing, then I'll be a good artist. And that's kind of actually a backwards way of approaching the study of art. People that I know that are really successful and do great expressive work, I've generally found that what they do is they kind of figure out what it is they want to do. Like there's a story they want to tell, or a painting they want to make, or an artist they want to be like, or something like that, where they're really kind of drilling down into a project that they want to complete. Like there's some story you want to tell, and then what they do is they try to learn the skills that make it possible for them to tell that story. So, like if there's like a animation you wanted to make, well, what's the story that you want to tell? And so if you want to tell a story, about, so let's say like take that movie Flow that came out. I need to watch that. People, the one about the cat done by that Latvian guy. It's doing really well out there. But let's see, I guess I've dropped off the screen. There we go. Sorry about that. But like I don't think he went to school for animation. But he wanted to make short films, and so he started making them and kind of learning how to do it as he went. And I've done that for different things. For example, when I was graduating from my university, Halo on the PC had come out. So Halo CE, but it was on the PC. And and I wanted to make some. I wanted to learn like 3D stuff and kind of understand how that worked. And I was okay, maybe getting a job at a game company, that kind of thing. And so I got into this Halo thing, and I learned how to use the engine that they gave us on the PC, and how to model in 3ds Max, and how to do UVs and all that stuff to make stuff for that. And I never took a class on doing 3D. I never had a teacher for it. There was some YouTube stuff you could watch that would kind of show you how to do some things. There wasn't a lot back then. This was 2004. And but it was, but I really wanted to make these maps. I ended up finishing 2 of them eventually. One is pretty rough, it's really big. I just wanted to do like a big giant sniper map. And then the other one was smaller. I think I should have made that one just like a little bit bigger, but in retrospect. But it was much nicer than the first one. And then there was a third one I was working on, and then my computer crashed, and I lost all the information and all that. But then I'd already kind of moved on. I was starting to move on to other things at that point. But I learned a lot just all by myself because I wanted to understand how to do this thing, and I had a thing that I wanted to make in a way that I wanted to make it. And that's really kind of how you really learn your skills. So like if you want to do, I don't know, comics or something, or you want to tell an animated story, you figure out what that story is, and then kind of what skills you need to do to tell that story. And so for example, if you want to do comics or something, or human-based, then you got to learn to draw the figure. You got to learn to understand anatomy. You've got to gesture and expressions and a whole bunch of things in order to make that possible. But the pursuit of that project will show you what you need to learn, because you'll be doing it and you won't know how to do this thing, or you won't be able to do it very well. And it'll kind of show you what it is you need to do. And that's really kind of the best way, I think, to do the autodidact thing. Because I know some people, they'll just kind of do they'll collect skills, but never really use them for anything. And I've seen that happen. I've done that myself, where I've been like, well, if I just learn how to do this painting technique or this program or something, then I'll finally be able to I'll have an idea about what it is I want to do. And so it was something like that. Yeah, I think I saw, didn't watch it. I saw there was some video on YouTube or something talk about him where I guess he got rejected by Marvel or DC or something like that, and that kind of led ultimately to doing the Black Sad comic, which is very, very popular. It's highly regarded. Everybody likes it. It's a unique personal vision. Furries love it, I guess, right? But that's really the best way to learn. Even if you're going to school, like I teach at a university, we're coming up on the summer break here. I try to set up my project so that in order for a student to successfully complete the project, that they're doing it for reasons that kind of adhere to what their interests are. So if they're taking my concept drawing class, and I'm making them do all these perspective exercises, well, the perspective exercises are there to help them, tell a better story. And it's not there to torment them, not there to just make them go through the suffering and the pain of, mastering perspective, which is really important. I've found learning perspective really changes a student's ability to draw, because they start to see space differently if they haven't studied it before. What do I think about the restart of Fed student loan collection? Well, the whole student loan system is a very corrupt system. It's the reason why college is so expensive. At least that's what I think. Um, and so I think the whole system is corrupt. Um, as for the collection of it, yeah, I'm not sure what they're supposed to do because either money exists or it does not. Right? That's the whole. That's the whole thing. Either money matters or it doesn't. And I think part of there's a number of reasons, but another reason why college is so expensive is due to the inflation because of the fiat currency that the entire world has adopted as its monetary system. Though college expenses go up a lot faster than inflation does. But yeah, I think they need to address the reasons why college costs so much, and I think a lot of students have been sold a false bill of goods to a large degree. We have seen though, like with the increase in college cost I think is part of the reason that so many students are moving into, like art students move into the major that I teach in, which is communication arts, and that's kind of your professional commercial arts program at the school, away from the fine art programs. So, because they want to know they're investing in something that's worth paying back. Yeah, yeah. So we're all in this funny money system, and yeah, the question is who's going to be left standing when the carousel stops moving, when there's no more chairs on the floor. I don't know what that's going to be like. What problems that will cause. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It feels like converging all at the same time, and I don't know. I guess have a lot of cigarettes to trade or something when the world falls apart. Yeah, that's the other thing. But they're also looking at that now too because of all this fixation on AI. So I saw there's this article that's been going around on social media about how AI is causing these problems at universities where students are essentially cheating on all of their writing. They're turning in these AI written documents, and the teacher goes over these papers with their students, and the students have no idea what's in their paper. So they'll open up and say, let's take a look at what you got here. And the student will be just like, can you tell me why you put this in here? And they won't have any answers because they didn't do it, And it's sort of a reflection of, I think, students not having their interests served to a certain degree. They feel like they're in college to jump through hoops rather than, have this experience, this idealistic experience of education. What's funny though is, like, at least in my department, like the only people pushing AI are faculty. Like almost none of the students want it. Yeah, but college is ridiculously expensive. Even the school I'm at, I'm at a public university. It's less expensive for the students. The money is obviously coming from, the taxpayers to a large degree. But it's less expensive for the individual students to attend. And than like the private schools I've taught at. But like I've taught at Ringling and SCAD and those places. I couldn't imagine going. Yeah, well, you look at marketing, yeah, but yeah, I couldn't imagine, like, even though like they have really amazing teachers, say at Ringling, so they've got like some really amazing illustrators teaching there, like John Foster and George Pratt. Um, both have had like significant careers in illustration. There's a whole bunch of people there. There's just really amazing kind of people that end career. They'll kind of go over and start teaching somewhere, but it's still, just tuition alone is $250,000 for an illustration degree. And monetarily, that's probably not worth it unless you're like a genius marketer or something like that, which I don't know that they're teaching all that much of in that department. I was teaching over students over in motion design, which was, is a high growth area, but because that's a super high demand skill set. But yeah, but even like those, there's a lot of people talking about how, a lot of what you thought were the high earning degrees due to AI may not be. I don't know that that's going to be true ultimately. Because again, there's a lot of problems with this current iteration of large language models as they stand at the moment in terms of their viability and their utility. There's a lot that's been said about what they can do that is not really true. Yeah. Again, like if you're, and so that's why there are, so when they talk about college repayment, there's different types. So there's like the default amount that you would pay. So for example, my graduate degree, which my loan got forgiven for that last fall officially. Last one, no, it was year before last, I think, which is a big relief, right? I think it was some kind of combination of policies that Trump put in during COVID started, and then Biden kind of, I think, upped a bit. But so it's gone, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. But yeah, but it doesn't make any sense in terms of the circumstances it was forgiven under, that I can tell. But I'll take it, I guess. They don't need the money apparently, then I don't need to pay it. But there's different kinds of payment plans for college loans. So like your default amount may be like $1,000 a month, right? I think mine was, because it was like $100,000 for the 2 years I spent in New York, between tuition and living in New York, and then the interest over time. But copy, I have no shame, it is study, that's fine, copy, yeah. I've been hearing about that, but in terms of the AI stuff, but they, but anyway, one of the things they have is an income-based repayment plan. So they'll look at what your income is, and maybe, say you're making like $75,000 a year or something like that, and maybe your income repayment plan will be a couple $100s a month. So while it's not cheap, it's a lot less than like say the 1,000 or 1,000 plus that it could be, depending on the size of your loan. And then that payment plan is set up for 25 years. So once you've made 25 years of qualifying payments, that loan gets forgiven. So it depends on the person and how they've kind of got their payment plan set up. If they make a lot less than that, it's possible. Like during COVID, of course, the qualifying payments were zero. That was a fiscally conservative Trump policy. That was put in place, but that can also happen under these income-based repayment plans, where the people often pay nothing. So maybe you're making $30,000 a year, and your qualifying payment may be zero. So it just kind of depends. So a lot of like the histrionics you're seeing people make online, it could be you've got someone who's making $150,000 a year, and then they've established a life where they haven't had to make a $800 a month payment on a plan, where all of a sudden they're going to have to start making that payment. So there's a lot going on where there's things that I think are definitely unfair. I think it's circumstantial depending on the person. Yeah, and so it could be, that someone, who's been not having to make payments for a long time is suddenly having to make payments. They can afford them, but they've built a life around not having to make those payments. So there's just different things going on all at the same time, and so but again, it is possible for people to make affordable payments. And I think there's certain categories of loans where people have not been required to make what they call qualifying payments. Like when I was doing my when I was shifting my loan, doing the application for getting it forgiven, they looked at my income and they said, well, for the next 6 months or whatever, we've looked at your income and we're going to set your qualifying payment to 0. Is that okay? I was like, sounds fine to me. um, but so again, it just depends on the person. But I think there's a lot of people that are doing really well that are suddenly they suddenly have to start making payments on something they didn't plan for, that it wasn't scheduled into their budget, and so that's where you're seeing a lot of the complaints come from, or people that aren't aware that they can take advantage of different types of loan repayment options for these loans, because these loans aren't even really done by like regular banks anymore. These are done by these organizations that are like government collection agencies that you consolidate under. They're kind of like government made up corporations. Like I think mine was Mohila. Hello, over there on the YouTube. Yeah, so that's how that's working right now. But I do think the way prices have gone up. The reason why university prices have gone up so much. Yeah, well, it's like I went to a private school, but it was inexpensive because of the nature of the school for my undergrad. But my graduate degree was at a private university. It was very expensive. Something like when I went, it was like I think $10,000 to $11,000 per semester. Now it's like 20. But again, one of the reasons why it goes up so much is because the universities don't collect the tuition directly from the student. It's done through a third party. It's one of the reasons why like medical stuff, even in the United States, is so expensive, is that because everything's handled through these insurance arrangements, the actual person who's receiving the services, whether it's at a university or a hospital or whatever, they're not actually paying for it. It's being handled through these insurance systems or these loan systems, and so because the university has no responsibility for collecting on the debt that a student takes, they are incentivized to raise their prices as high as possible. Because it gets paid to them no matter what, and then the actual collection of the debt is on these financial institutions, and that's what's driving the price of formal education up so much, and I think will harm it ultimately. It's nothing I can do anything about it than like point out that it exists to my students and why it's so expensive. Alright, finish this page and get the white on there. Yeah, there's no reason for it to be as expensive as it is. Like I could teach in person for probably a tenth of what my students pay in tuition. I would just need like a larger kind of warehouse area so I could do figure drawing classes or still life drawing classes, foundational stuff. And then students would have to get their own computer equipment. And then we would do like demos and lectures on site or online for people, or video recordings of things that I could then reuse later on. And the stuff I'm teaching right now, I could teach for far, far less, and students could afford to do it, working a part-time job somewhere, slinging mugs of coffee around or whatever, working night security or something for a short period of time. And of course, over 3 to 4 years, they could acquire all the skills necessary while having the in-person instruction that they want college to be. They wouldn't get a degree; they would just get a portfolio. But it's something that I could do. I've tried doing a few times. Part of it was one time, and I guess I didn't pick a very good location, and I was also still not that great at marketing. But it's something that I could definitely teach and bring in experts for it as well. But yeah, it's a big problem. It's not like your professors are making hand over fist money at these universities. Like, you can look up any university that's a nonprofit, even if it's a private school like Ringling or SCAD. They're legally nonprofits. You can look and see what people are making. Like, my students could look up my salary, and I guess it's good for the hourly rate in terms of how much I'm in the classroom. But it's it's fine. I can live off of it, but it's not the kind of money you make to. It ain't your Warren Buffett money. But yeah, but I could I could do my own whole in-person system for a lot less than a university, and I'd probably still make a lot more. Like, if I were doing it like at a tenth of the cost of a university education, I'd probably make 3 times as much money or something like that. But so I'm excited about my little teaching site, that myartprofessor.com, which I'm looking forward to getting back to. I've got a whole lot of time due to some extra teaching I did this semester for like the next 8 months, basically, from now until mid-January. And I'm kind of concluding this because I've been rewriting their entire major to include a illustration concentration. Open a Kubert style school. That would be fun. Again, I tried doing something similar, having like an in-studio thing when I was in Pennsylvania after leaving SCAD. Let's see, I should probably write this artist's name down here and then look up another tutorial. I'm going to start another one. But it didn't go well just because I didn't know how to market. Like, I knew how to put together an education system for people. That I can do. It's like I'm writing up all of these what they call course bulletins, which is like a course description, along with new goals and outcomes for the courses that are going into this what's it called, illustration concentration. And so I can put all that together. I can put together all the assignments and everything for all the students. I can demo pretty much everything. It's one of the mistakes of me trying to learn how to do things rather than learning how to do things for telling a story or something like that, is I know how to do a lot of things. But I could definitely put together that kind of situation. Alright, let's see. Is posted anything new in terms of other people's stuff? Oh, not there. And there was like a paint. There we go. This one's pretty simple. Just some folds about cake drawing. So I'm going to move this over here. And get this out of the way. Scoot all this over to the left. But yeah, something I have friends that do that kind of thing. Like there's a guy I know in he's outside of Philly, and he does commissions for the Catholic Church. So he'll do like design paintings, and he'll design design and execute large paintings, like mural sized paintings for Catholic churches around the United States. He'll design stained glass windows, so other people will make them, but he'll do the design for them for Catholic churches. A guy named Nielsen Carlin. He's what's the name of the town he's in, but it's just outside of Philadelphia. But he has his own little art school. He teaches kind of the methods that he was taught. I forget the name of his teacher. It's a really well-regarded teacher who was in New York. And he'd go into New York every day by train and study with this guy. I think he's since passed away, but Nielsen, he's out there doing his thing. He did the for the last papal visit to the United States. He did the Holy See painting, which is the painting of the family, so Joseph, Mary, and Jesus. All right, keep it simple. Clear silhouette, big shape, tension points, breaking planes. Yeah, so they're using diaper folds. Yeah, I saw that. They're in their token on some stuff until the smoke comes out, and then they'll have a decision. Right? That's how it works. Yeah, but he's a good illustrator. Like that's his background was illustration. He did a lot of like game, like board games covers and things like that. Some commemorative stuff. Until he shifted to the Catholic thing. But yeah, he runs a little school. He's done so for a long time out of his studio there. What if it's orange, right? Wasn't that the meme the other day? If it's orange smoke? But yeah, there's but I'm going to be putting a lot of time back into the teaching side. There's a lot of like promotional things that I need to do that I've had to neglect because I've been working on this big project at my school trying to rework the program so it's more focused, and I think it will make a big difference for the students. I just kind of like came in. I'm just like I see all this chaos going on. I'm like, why hasn't anyone dealt with this chaos? And the structure of everything just felt like it was backwards to what you would logically think it would be. And apparently, a lot of the courses have been taught kind of out of order. So they're supposed to be prerequisites, but they kind of they disappeared somehow. So our new chair has been kind of putting a lot of that stuff back in, the sequence in properly, and then and all of that. So, and then we got a bunch of professors who are like trying to push AI onto students who don't want it, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why? Yeah, it's funny. There's this article going around talking about how students aren't learning anything because of AI in their courses. Well, if it did that, it would be pretty dramatic. So the curriculum, well, really, the kind of curriculum I'm trying to put together is the kind that doesn't need to change very often. Um, so the major itself is supposed to be like a general commercial arts major. It's called communication arts. It's the oldest department at the school. It's been around, so I guess since 1930 ish. And they had like a very, very commercial focus. Like the quote early on is like, "We make drawings that sell," which I thought was great for them to say that. But the idea behind it is students are supposed to walk away with a kind of a suite of skills that allow them to enter commercial arts areas, whether that's marketing or illustration or graphic design. Apparently, a lot of students end up doing graphic design, and that's kind of. Oh, guess you're not pointed at my drawing. There we go. Sorry about that. Yell at me if I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. I'm trying to pay attention to a couple different places all at the same time. And so that's kind of the idea behind the major. Was students kind of able to enter a lot of different fields with like a broad set of skills, which I think can be fine. But I would kind of hear all these weird things. So they would say, "Oh, look at how bad the graphic design is here, or the drawing is here," and I'm like, "Well, there's not a lot of focus, right? Like if they're doing a whole bunch of different things, they're not going to get a lot of depth." So it got recommended that I put together a illustration concentration. So basically a set of classes within the major that allows a student to kind of customize their major to a certain degree so they can focus in on one topic. So they've had one for visual effects for a while. Which is, that's a good one to go into. It's very high demand area. And so they're updating that kind of as a result of the discussions we've been having with the illustration one. So they kind of brought that in and to refocus it in certain ways. And then there's certain classes that just haven't worked out very well. Like we tried doing this partnership with the business area to teach the kind of business class. And it just isn't serving students' needs at all. Like they're too focused on like the legalese of, setting up an S corp or an LLC and how to pay your taxes and all that stuff's really important, but it's not nearly as important as getting business. How to market yourself, how to present yourself, how to come up with ideas for the things you want to do, and so. We'll be scrapping that. One of our faculty, he's really great at that stuff and loves it. A guy named Sterling Hundley. He's a very, very high-end illustrator. He just finished a project with the Criterion Collection, designing a collector's DVD for Ran, which is I think it's Japanese movie. Somehow I skipped one of these guys here, but. We'll finish this one off. This pretty quick sequence of small, easy sketches dealing with they're called diaper folds. You pinch on the sides. On 7 May. Yeah, that's today, right? No, today's the 8th. I got a spammer over there. But so I think I don't know how often it gets updated, but I like try to set up the courses so that maybe the actual projects might change, or maybe the tools we're using in class might change. But I like to emphasize things that don't change, like good drawing and storytelling and perspective and all these things. Like again, people may use 3D models and things for their illustrations professionally at the end, but they still need to understand and have a good comfort level with using linear perspective. Like if they don't, then they're just kind of like drawing over what they see and hoping they're getting it right. Maybe they're just assuming it's right. But it's a problem if you don't really understand what you're looking at. But in the midst of all these curriculum changes, I've got all these professors trying to push AI onto students, which is just insane. So it's been kind of an interesting year for all of this this business. They're showing how this one isn't as good because it's kind of flat, so I won't pay a lot of attention to that one. But this one is good because it's showing how it's overlapping itself and sweeping around. So that's kind of what's going on. So basically, things kind of fell out of order. And then the other thing we've been dealing with is just the massive influx of students into the program. It's more than doubled, I guess, in the last 10 years. So 10 years ago, there was around 250 students, and now there's over 600, something like 640, 630 students in the program. And that's like a really big problem for like making sure quality stays consistent, and you know, students aren't getting left behind in the crack somewhere. We're also 1/3 of all of the art majors. Well, yeah, it's not so much a detour as it's like a derailment. So people are like, well, you don't need to understand what you're doing anymore because you've got these AIs to do it for us. I'm like, one of the things that people don't get is that it's not really what these systems do. So they're like, oh yeah, it helps me like come up with things or imagine things or visualize things very, very quickly. And I'm like, well, sort of. That's not really what it's doing. Not to mention how it's sourced and the environmental issues, the power issues, like it's using massive amounts of power, and doesn't appear to be sustainable as far as a profitable venture so far. But again, the students don't really want it. But we do have professors who do, which is weird. Like in terms of like the students not wanting it, it's like 99%. We had a student do a survey in the wake of some controversy last fall, and you know, she did this survey, and they got 120 of the 600 or so students to respond to this survey, which I think is pretty good for that sample size, and it's unambiguous. It's like 99% of the students, like, they don't want it. And my attitude, like my neutral attitude that I kind of had before was, well, sure, you know, maybe it'll be required. Like there's a story from EA today saying they've reaffirmed their commitment to it or something like that, to integrating it into their systems. And so like maybe it'll be required at their jobs. I don't know. You know, it is required at some people's now, but you know, in the long-term future, I have no idea what we're gonna see. But even if it is, you know, it takes an afternoon to learn how to use. We don't add anything to the students' abilities by integrating it into their creative process. All we're doing is hampering their ability to become creative thinkers and creators at all by putting it into their process. Like that was obvious to me that it would harm their critical thinking skills, and there's been studies recently that have kind of demonstrated that, and you're going to see more of them, more of these studies coming out, where it's obvious that it doesn't help people become better at things. It just shortchanges them, and I think it can cause severe reputational harm. Like there was someone up here mentioning before, I think on the YouTube side, saying, you know, like they were saying, well, you know, it's one thing to like use AI as like a study source. I think that's a real big problem because it doesn't produce reality, and so it doesn't really make sense to use it as a study source. But they were pointing out that you know, there's artists that sometimes they just full on trace over it and do some touch ups and paint ups, and that's kind of considered pretty scummy online to do that. There's been some significant online artists that have been kind of busted doing that recently. I call them the lights are on but no one's home group of artists. Like they draw pretty girls in a quasi anime style. But like Ross draws and people like that. But he's been in trouble because he's been kind of outed as like a big AI user for a lot of his stuff lately. But but it can cause severe reputational harm because people want, when the people look at an artist's work, they want that artist. They don't want an algorithmic version of that artist. That's just a basic human. That's why people are interested in art, because they're interested in people. Yeah, those guys, they've got solid skills and everything. I just don't find their work at all interesting. Like one of the guys, I don't think this guy does the AI thing based off of the things he said, but like Sam does art. Like they're pretty, they're nice, and they do well. Like it's not like people ignore them. They and people like that, they have pretty big followings and sell prints and tutorials and brush packs and all that stuff. But I have like no interest in their work. The only reason I even ever follow them online is just kind of to see how their marketing functions. But I call them, the lights are on but nobody's home painting. Everyone's kind of got like a pleasant expression on their face at all times, and or it's like mildly annoyed or something at the world. I think my dog is trying to tell me something. You look out the window, puppy? But I don't think they're bad. It's just it's not my nothing. It's nothing I have any interest in. I know a lot of people do, but I'm not one of them. But there's been a lot of drama around that Ross Draws guy lately because of I guess there was somebody he was working with who got felt like he was getting ignored and disrespected, and so he kind of dropped a lot of info about him. But again, using AI can cause harm because people are like, well, used it for this, then are using it to do this commission of me because I wanted this commission because of you and the way you work and what you do, not because of some way you can like generate an image or all of that. So, or you're feeling comfortable taking from your fellow creators. It's like I was talking to an artist I know. He's like, "Oh, I hate all this generative AI stuff, blah blah." But he says, "I really like using ChatGPT," and I'm like, "You realize it's the exact same thing as all these other things? Like, it's not like it's using ethically sourced data. It's not like it's using less power. It's not like it's causing you less harm. It's not hallucinating any less than any of the other things you're using. Like, it's all the same thing." So I always find it interesting where people kind of draw the line. I forgot to do the black ink on this. I mean, it looks great with the orange too, but that's why I get distracted when I'm talking. It shouldn't take too long. We'll use the easy ink here on here rather than my calligraphy. But that's one of the interesting things I found in talking to people is where they draw the line. Like I was talking to this art history professor who was visiting from another school, and he was telling me, "Oh, I like it for starting up an essay idea. I don't trust it or anything, of course. We would, but I like to use it to start up a project." And maybe get some initial thoughts on a thing. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I know artists who are doing that with their images and coming up with paintings and ideas for things using that as a starting point, and his face just like looked like he was sucking a lemon all of a sudden. He's like, they would do that? That's offensive. And I'm like, well, it's the exact same thing you're doing, chum. I always find it interesting where people draw their lines. It's like, well, I only use it for this and that, and I would never, ever, ever use it for blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, sure sounds like you are using it for this other thing. Yeah, it's like, at this point, it's like, one of the things I think you'll find with this AI thing is that one's reputation is going to be of very high importance. That you are the author of your work, and I think that's going to have a lot of value, especially if it becomes more integrated into things. Just the direction it's going now, but I'm not convinced it'll necessarily stay that way, because again, the technology itself is not very sustainable. It's like who would want to read that? Who would want to read? It's like what they talk about it, maybe happening in comics, but one of the things with comics is people follow artists. They don't always follow story. They don't always follow writers, but they always follow artists. So it's like I don't think this new Ultimate Batman's all that good, but I could see people wanting it just for Nick Dragotta's work. And that alone would carry it. It's like putting Audrey Hepburn in a movie. It's like it can be a terrible movie, but she's in it, and that's like reason enough to go watch it for a lot of people. Not that she's in any movies anymore, but that's one of the reasons why those Image guys did so well early on. Is people were like, hey, Jim Lee, he's incredible, we'll follow him. Todd McFarlane, he's doing this Spawn book, I want to go over there. There's it's that reputation of that artist that people really, really admire. And makes a big difference for what people want from others. So, like if you couldn't be bothered to write it, why would I bother reading it? I'll just have my AI summarize your book for me. That's kind of the joke, right? The AI sending out detailed information to have other AI summarize it for someone who doesn't really want to read it, and then it will respond based off of that summary, and voila, no information will have been shared or lost. Yeah, I think, and all they wanted was they just wanted a bigger piece of the pie, because that's why people were going to Marvel. They weren't going there because of the X-Men necessarily, right? They were going there because Jim Lee was drawing the X-Men, or Liefeld was doing X-Force, or Spider-Man and McFarlane. It's like these artists really made these books, and that's one of the reasons why they were selling so well. That's why they brought him back to do those reboots that weren't very good. So even though Jim Lee wasn't that good of an author, or even really a character designer, he was a great draftsman, but not really a good storyteller in the sense of coming up with his own. But Yeah, but if they just gave him a bigger cut of the pie or some ownership in the company or something like that, they'd probably still be an independent organization that was financially viable. But they didn't want to hand that power over to these young upstarts, so they walked away. Yeah. But again, you compare those with, you drop, even back then, like Avengers and that, Iron Man wasn't as nearly as popular as the books that, you know, these Image guys were doing at Marvel at the time. So if they put Jim Lee on Iron Man, it would have like jumped through the roof, right? It would have taken off. Or Todd McFarlane on the Fantastic Four or something like that. So I know like the initial runs of these rebooted ones, they did really well. Like those initial issues, because I think they were all doing like 4 issues or something like that. Will Portatio and Jim Lee and Liefeld and others. They did like a certain number of issues at the very beginning. Those series didn't last. Like they just weren't that good. You could see like when you look at like the Jim Lee one, like his heart really wasn't in doing those rebooted comics. Yeah, because again, people were following the artist. So if they put Larson on Captain America, it would have outsold Spider-Man. But yeah, I don't think Marvel's ever really recovered from that Image rebellion, because they've been deathly afraid of turning artists into rock stars ever since. And yeah, McFarlane refused to. I think he's the only one that's ever stayed completely independent. He'll do licensed stuff with these companies for his toys, but yeah, he's never ever gone back. I think he understood that they didn't respect him and what he brought to the table, and he wasn't willing to ever sacrifice that, which I appreciate. It doesn't mean he's like the best person ever or anything, but I do appreciate that kind of attitude to say, hey, you know what, I'm walking away, and I'm never ever looking back. Which I think is a good approach. To not everything, but to certain things, saying, hey, you know what, you people. It's like I worked at this illustration studio with this guy, and our owner has paid us all a certain amount, based off of whatever different things, but he wasn't paying us that much. Anyway, so at a certain point, I'd been talking to this game company, and I had been talking to them before. I went with this other one just because of mostly for reasons of time control, and. But I was talking to them, and they mentioned, oh yeah, we'd love to work with this guy you're working with at this company. I'm like, oh really? I'll mention that to him. And so I mentioned him. He's like, oh well, that's interesting. We didn't have any interest in it. And then like a few months later, we were working alone one evening at the studio. He's like, so tell me about this game company thing. Like, what did they say? I said, oh, they're interested in working with you and you should apply. So I helped him apply, get in there, and he's been working those companies ever since. But as soon as he left, the guy who owned the studio we were working for, he offered to triple the guy's pay after he left. And he was like, no, it's too late. It was like, because he was a big draw. He's a really good illustrator, and he was a big draw for why people went to this studio, was to work with him. And I think he still did work for the guy, like, on the side, as a freelancer, but he never went back full time. And that company doesn't exist anymore. They got bought out by one of our major clients. And this one is done by Grizz and Norm. But that's the thing, it's like, I wasn't the best artist, or this guy clearly was. Like, he was just really, really capable and highly skilled. He had a very particular style he worked in that was very attractive to people. All these things. And that made him, very, very, very popular. And, they should have valued him more, made it impossible for him to leave. Yeah, that's that lateral move. I'll tell students about that too. I'll be like, well, sometimes you'll be working for a company, and they won't promote you. And I should be like, well, because what it is they're happy with where you are, and they're happy with what you're doing, and they don't want to take a risk on somebody else in that position. So they don't want to promote you. They'll rather bring in someone new for this more advanced position, because they need you to do what you're doing. So a lot of times I said, if you want to get advancement in your profession, I got this over here. Sometimes you gotta, jump ship, and do a lateral move, and that's the only way that you can kind of move up, is by transferring to a new company. Like my sister, she wasn't doing crazy money at this place, but she asked for like a small raise, like a $5 an hour raise or something like that, and they wouldn't give it to her. She moved on to this other job, and they hired 3 people to replace her because she was doing so much, and that's why she wanted the raise, was because she knew she was providing a lot of value to this company. But they didn't want to pay it, so instead they had to pay it 3 times as much, rather than just 20% more or whatever it is she wanted. So, but hello over there, Draw the God over on Kick. So here's this page filled up with these tutorial drawings from other people, and little lecture notes on foot as wedge in the middle. Someone was asking about that yesterday. Yeah, the hands here, these are from this artist Tursin Soilu, and this is Grizz and Norm is for this right here. And you found these off of the Etherington Twitter, where these are all sourced from. Yeah, it was just really funny that they had to hire 3 people, because probably what happened is they started to put together, a job application for people. And they realized, like, wait, she's doing a lot of stuff here. Joe-san. But, I appreciate that. Yeah, this is my morning study warm-up. I like to use other people's work as a way of kind of starting off the day. So this is from the last few days. Or earlier, I guess, last 4 or 5 days. And then this is from today and yesterday. This is how I like to start my morning. Do this for about an hour, which I've actually gone past. So, hello, Justine. I just remembered your name because I was looking at these. I always see these IDs that people have online. It makes me forget people's names. But But yeah, so that's what I think, and appreciate everybody that came in. Hopefully we'll be back tomorrow, bright and early, or maybe later today. We'll see. Today's graduation, so I get to go. Actually, I'm not going to attend the actual graduation, but I'm going to meet up with everybody afterward and bring my dog because they want him to come. So I'll show up after that. Next, I'm like Asteria Moo. Yeah, just don't draw any circles, right, Justine? We don't like circles, especially small ones. But yeah, I'm going to call it a morning there. I need to move on to all the other things I got to do today. And we'll catch you all later.